Hey everyone, welcome back to L2Games and to episode 3 of the L2Games Podcast. Today I am joined by two new guests on the show. If you've been watching the channel for a while, you might know them as UnderZone7 and MichelinMan38. I know them as Hussein and Ryan. Guys, welcome.
Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good. How are things?
Pretty good, yeah.
Cool, yeah. So I'm saying, the gamer tag under Zone 7 followed since the Xbox 360 days. Just relatively new to gaming, I'd say. Definitely got into it a lot more during the pandemic. So definitely kind of just feeling things out now. Yeah, right now, just a big Apex Legends guys, try to hop on that whenever I can. Computer's been kind of busted for the past little bit, so hopefully I can get back on that. But yeah.
Yeah, and then my name's Ryan. Yeah, MichelinMan38. Got that way back in the day, PS3 days. We've rolled with that ever since. Never really changed it. But yeah, I've been gaming my whole life. Like when I was younger, it used to be more like primarily like sports games and such. That's why like that episode 2 would have been Nick would have been perfect for me to talk to
Yeah.
as well. But yeah, it's been primarily sports games when I was younger and COD all the time. But yeah, now recently we've really switched over to Apex, and yeah, me, Nick, Hussein, we've been jumping on that a lot, so that's been fun.
Yeah,
But yeah.
and the whole Apex trend here and Warzone stuff is kind of why I wanted to do this episode. So today we're talking about crossplay and skill-based matchmaking in games. So before we go too far, I want to ask you guys, growing up, was crossplay ever a thing you guys wished for in games? Like, did you ever see, oh, your friend's got a PlayStation, I've got an Xbox or whatever, and I really wish I could play with him, but I can't?
Oh, 100%, I think. So I'd be playing the Xbox 360, and honestly, like, I didn't have a ton of games, but even I remember, like, the sports games I had and stuff. I remember back then you couldn't even do that, like, in those games, which I think was kind of insane considering it's like two guys just playing the exact same game on a separate system. You think that they'd be able to play with each other, right?
Hmm.
But I think that
Yeah.
that's like, I think it's pretty crazy that, like, it's even a thing now, like, especially, well, we'll get into it a little bit more, but especially considering like how it interfaces with like PC games and stuff too, right?
Yeah, I think like especially when we were growing up, like I was always a PlayStation kid. So when it was PS3 and like Xbox 360 in like high school and such, like a lot of my friends had Xbox, right? So I was kind of on the other side. So that would have been like yeah, just like prime like NHL, 2K, that stuff. Like playing with friends would have been a lot easier if crossplay would have been a thing back then. But yeah, yeah, I guess we'll kind of get into when crossplay kind of came around, especially for like with PC and everything, which would have been like a crazy jump for whoever developed that. But yeah, it would have been huge growing up to have that as a feature.
Yeah, definitely. I'm definitely in the same boat, especially with the sports games too, because I think so
Yeah,
many people in our friend group had PS3s and I was on Xbox 360, so the only way we were all playing 2K together is if we all go to someone's house and play it. So, yeah, crossplay was definitely something I kind of wished for, but now I kind of feel like maybe kind of overlooked a few issues with it, and those are sort of the things I
hmm
want to talk about today. So, when I say crossplay in games, do you guys have an overall positive opinion or a negative opinion, somewhere in the middle?
Well, I guess if you had asked me at the beginning, like, so I generally wouldn't have even thought about crossplay until like kind of since the pandemic began and when we were really like all like hopping on and everything, right? Because I would be PC gaming, and then I remember you and Ryan would be on the Xbox or on the PS4, sorry. And then we had a
yeah,
bunch of guys like who would hop on their PlayStations as well too, right? So I didn't really give it a thought when I was playing, but then slowly over time, as we were playing, we'd get the complaints like, "Oh, how are these guys able to aim faster than us?" And then the complaints about obviously blatant cheating because there's just games that don't use anti-cheat software, Warzone. But yeah, and that to me, in a sense, is crazy because it's like even though that's the problem with PC when you look at it versus consoles, right? Is the OSs and how locked down it is, right? Like PC is always open source. You're able to code. You're always going to even anti-cheat. You're going to be able to get around it. But when you look at like consoles, hacking a console, as soon as you hack a console, you're banned from online. Like you can't even play online anymore, right?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
there is like that aspect to kind of consider.
I think for me, like it's been pretty negative. Like going off what Hussein said, like most of our Warzone, like we played that game so much like in 2020 throughout like the main part of the pandemic and stuff, and that game is so fun. But it just got so hampered by cheaters, and then just the difference between like PC gaming and console gaming, it really got tough to even compete with like the mouse and keyboard kids. Like it's so different. And then when you're like so competitive, it's tough to see like that difference. So I think like overall it's been kind of more negative than positive really, especially in the past year. But yeah.
Yeah, I definitely find myself in the same camp too, where it's more negative than positive, especially with games like Warzone and Apex, because there is that blatant cheating problem, and it's impossible to get around that, especially when it's forced crossplay. I know, like, the default in Warzone and in Fortnite at least is you're playing in mixed lobbies, and so there's pretty good odds you're going to run into a cheater, and it gets really frustrating and kind of drives people away from those games. So yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like I'm definitely in the more negative side of things. Although there are some positives, I feel like, to crossplay. There's the accessibility thing. Like Hussein, I feel like maybe you wouldn't have played Warzone and Apex with us because those are such
Oh,
team-based social games. If there wasn't any crossplay.
oh, for sure, yeah. And it's like I look back at that, like, because mainly my game repertoire, like prior towards like this year and the year before, was RPGs, right? Like I'd play Witcher 3, like I still play Skyrim. I love that game, right? And there's a
Hmm.
ton of just anything that's RPG based, like that was always my game way, right? Like I like to mod things. I like to do all the fun, cool stuff like that, right? So it's like first person shooters in general are so far out of my like realm of typical gameplay, which I wouldn't have even considered to play when it's like my friends weren't like, hey, every night, like, hey, let's go on, let's play a game, let's get a game or two in, like try to beat these casuals, right? And
Hmm.
it's like that in its sense was I think like just huge for me too, because it's like just like honestly was kind of nice during the pandemic too, right? Because it gave us like that kind of social interaction too, which was nice, which was definitely missing from our lives. So I definitely like really I don't know. I still think crossplay like has a spot, and I think it's like I think we need better software, almost like anti-cheat software, if that makes sense. And sorry, Nick, I had a question for you. So when you say like crossplay is enabled by default on like Warzone and Fortnite and stuff like
Yeah.
that, isn't that only like console to console crossplay though, or is that
No,
like PC to console that's also enabled?
no, that's PC to console. So the only one that doesn't, as far as I know, is Apex, which is generally just console to console. But we'll dive more into that in a bit.
Okay.
So what I want to do right now is I'm going to read out a list of games with crossplay, and I want you guys to tell me like if you guys know anything about these or like see any common trends in this when I finish reading out the list. So games with crossplay, we've got Among Us, Apex Legends, Brawlhalla, Call of Duty, Black Ops Cold War, and Warzone and Modern Warfare. Chivalry 2, Dauntless, Dead by Daylight, Destiny 2, Fantasy Strike, Final Fantasy XIV, Fortnite, Genshin Impact, Hood Outlaws and Legends, Hyperscape, Knockout City, Minecraft and Minecraft Dungeons, MLB The Show, Need for Speed Heat, No Man's Sky, Overcooked All You Can Eat, Overwatch, Paladins, Champions of the Realm, Power Rangers Battle for the Grid, Realm Royale, Rocket League, Rogue Company, Smite, Splitgate, Spellbreak, Star Wars Squadrons, Super Mega Baseball 2 and 3, World of Warships Legends, and World War Z. So is there any trend you
The
guys
length?
notice with those?
Yeah, well, isn't that just the entire like Twitch viewing catalog? Like I feel like you just listed like the exact ones that everyone's watching.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think like the trend is just like crossplay is just here to stay. Like with all new games, like
Hmm.
I don't even know. Like there's really there's it's just the norm now. Like it's crazy how like I don't really want to go. Like I know where crossplay started for me. It was definitely Fortnite because I used to play that so much, and then just being able to play with like PC guys. And I think I remember I thought it was that if you had a PC person in your lobby, then that was the highest the matchmaking would be. but I didn't know it was always just like with PC people because the skill gap in that game was so high. Like, there's
Yeah,
no way as a console person you were gonna be able to build with a PC person. I remember I had one of my friends. He would just build like crazy, and I would just be like, okay, man, like I'm not even, I can't even fight this.
yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I think they changed it around the start of Chapter 2, and there used to be an opt-out for crossplay, and they've gotten rid of it in the last few seasons, so
Oh,
it's kind of
jeez, yeah.
annoying.
I guess I haven't played it. I haven't played it in a minute, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you, Hussein? Anything you notice about the list of games?
Yeah, so that list you said to me, and actually I wanted to mention something before I get onto that list. So I noticed that like Fall Guys is a game that doesn't have crossplay.
Mhm.
And I just wanted to say like how big Fall Guys was when it came out and
Oh
how
yeah.
far it fell off. Like I don't think I know a single person that still plays Fall Guys.
Well, I think
And
it
that
got
to
big
me,
because people were streaming it on PlayStation because it was free on PS Plus when it came out, and so everyone figured, well, free game, might as well play it.
Yeah, it had that
well,
absolute month in the sun there for sure.
Yeah.
well, I don't know. I even look at like for PC gamers, anyways, right? Like we got Epic Games. I get like a free 2 games every day, right? Or every week, sorry, I should say. And like those games, I don't see those like blowing up as big as what Fall Guys did, right? And like my main thing is like I think Fall Guys would have honestly potentially stayed in the spotlight longer had they had crossplay. Because
Yeah.
imagine if guys on PC had Fall Guys, imagine if guys on Xbox had Fall Guys, right? And we were all like trying to play with each other. Because as big as we want to say the PlayStation gaming community is, which is it's massive, it's probably I would say it's like the second largest, right?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
like
agree. Yeah.
yeah, so it's like it would have been crazy to see. I think it would have been stayed on the limelight a lot longer, and I think like that was a missed opportunity. But yeah, but coming back into like the gaming list that like you were kind of saying earlier, like to me, as a guy who's looking in, as a guy who used to play like MMOs and stuff, right? Like I hear Genshin Impact and I hear games like that, and I basically just kind of split those games off into two categories, right? You have like your MMOs in that list, and then
Hmm.
you have your like shooters, and then you have your sports games, obviously too. But that's kind of
Yeah.
a little different, right? But and then that's the thing with MMOs too is like that's something that's been going on for so long in the PC community anyways, right? I guess it's not really crossplay based, but it's like you would always like pick up an MMO, you'd like have a bunch of buddies, you'd hop on Final Fantasy, do quests, right? World of
Hmm.
Warcraft. I remember growing up like that was massive for us. And honestly, you didn't even need a great computer to run that. Like you could run it at like potato resolution and you'd still have fun, right? Because it would be like you'd be with your buddies, you'd be talking, you'd be like mining and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
So I think that it's very interesting how MMOs are kind of starting to move on to the whole like console kind of platform too. And it's like we're seeing them on our phones too, right? Especially when you mentioned Genshin Impact, like that's something you can play on your phone too, right?
Yeah.
And
Mm.
that's kind of crazy in a sense too, where it's like we're kind of moving to a point where we're going to be having like mobile crossplay with a lot of these games too, right? And I mean we have that with Fortnite and stuff like that too,
Well,
and
I
that's
mean,
kind of
we
like
had it before Epic decided to throw a tantrum at Google and Apple.
yeah, that's a
uh,
whole other topic there, but
yeah, Nick, what's the link though? Because like you listen to a ton of games, and there's like Rocket League, and there's Smite. Like, there's no genre link. So like, what is it?
So the big thing I'm looking at is that all of these games are PvP focused multiplayer.
Mm.
And so
okay.
the interesting thing to me about that was that I feel like crossplay works better when it's cooperative crossplay and you're doing something with friends on other consoles and working towards a common goal. Because you look at things like Warzone, Fortnite, Apex, the battle royales, when you talk about crossplay in those contexts where it's super competitive, you start dividing the community because everyone's complaining about the advantages someone has on the other side. I
Yeah.
I complain about the precision mouse and keyboard players have and tap strafing, even though they're removing that from Apex. But being able to headshot a guy with an SMG from 500 feet away, things like
Yeah.
that. And I feel like in more co-op focused games, you don't really have that problem. Having different controls doesn't really make that big of a difference. And even with sports games, there aren't a lot of sports games that are crossplay yet. And I feel like that would be more fair as far as the competitive aspect goes with crossplay because there aren't that many different things you can do based on your controller input.
Yeah, there's no mechanics to really take advantage of when you're playing shell straight up. Like it's not gonna make any
Yeah.
difference. But yeah, then like the mouse and keyboard guys, like when I watch Twitch, they're always like complaining about aim assist, like how strong it is, especially on Apex right now. That's been kind of a topic as well, just how strong it is, especially when they're taking out tap strafing, which I don't even
Yeah.
really know much of like what even that is, but yeah, I've just kind of heard about that.
I have no idea what the fuck trap strafing or tap strafing is. Like, I have never used that before.
My understanding is that like if you push forward movement multiple times and then jump and then turn midair, you keep your momentum when you land, so you can strafe at higher speeds than other players.
Oh,
Oh, weird.
But
so it was
I
like
never
in
used it.
Warzone, the movement in Warzone. Remember when it was like you're always crouch sliding, that sort of thing? Maybe that's sort of the same thing, but
yeah, yeah.
Interesting.
But yeah, anyway, I was just looking at that and thinking, crossplay works better when it's a co-op thing, but I wanted to get into what do you guys think the biggest problems with crossplay are? I mean, we've sort of
Oh,
touched on this already, but
yeah. Well, obviously, number one is cheating, right? Like, there's no way to control having an open source OS versus something that's sealed off, right? It's like when we used to like jailbreak our iPhones to like get apps and stuff, right? And then same thing with an Android phone, you can just get an Android phone, download an app, right?
yeah.
The thing with PC is that there's always going to be a way around things. There's cheat engine, there's Wiimote, there's countless of number of things that you can do to essentially be like, hey, you know what? I don't want to play this game the way it's intended to play. I want to have unlimited health. I want to have unlimited ammo. All these things, right? And
Hmm.
anti-cheat software can only do like such little. Like I've looked at like easy anti-cheat. Like that's what they use for Fortnite, and I'm pretty sure Apex uses like the exact same thing too. It's like the way that software works is essentially it'll boot up when your game boots up, and it'll make sure that nothing is running at the same time, right? As your game. But that's like that in its sense is so easy to get around, right? Like you can spoof things, you can have things like virtually going in the background too, right? Like there's no limitations with PC, and that's kind of the problem when you get into the whole like kind of cheating aspect. Like it's such a rabbit hole because there's always going to be ways, there's always going to be exploits, right?
Hmm.
And there's going to be ways to get around those things. Whereas like on console, it's like, what can you do? You can get a chrono sen, and that's going to make your aim a little bit better, but that's about it, right? I think that's the best thing you guys can have on console in terms of cheating, right?
Yeah, as far as I know.
yeah, no, that's definitely the main, just the cheating, especially how it's like it hasn't really ruined Warzone, but like I think because for us we played it like we had like I don't know, I think I had like 14 days worth of gameplay in that game. Like it was fun, played it a ton, but it definitely got old just with the cheaters you'd run into. But like games do have like life stages, right? So like it kind of is it's nearing its end. But like the other like kind of negative part of it, I guess, is like just the competitive disadvantage. Like I'm a pretty competitive person, but I think it's just hard like because especially in Warzone it was you could tell when you're playing against a mouse and keyboard person. They have like they have better builds, better PC setups compared to me playing on a PS4 and in Wi-Fi like I was until like 2 months ago, right? Like
Yeah.
it was such a bad setup I had in my parents' basement that there's no way I'm going to be able to compete with these like mouse and keyboard kids on $2,000 PCs. Like it's just not going to happen, right?
Yeah.
But it's then there's a lot of positives with it as well, like just being able to play with all your friends and stuff. So there's definitely a balance for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of fall into both camps too, where I think the big problems are the cheating, obviously, and the competitive disadvantages. And I will die on the hill that players in Fortnite and Warzone have huge advantages when they're playing on PC, even just for the movement, the precision, and in Fortnite being able to build the Empire State Building in 2 seconds,
Oh
as
yeah,
my other
no,
friends put it. And it's just it's insane sometimes, and it's frustrating to see that it's been implemented so heavily in PvP games where there's going to be that inherent disadvantage on one side, but PvE games and even sports games have kind of flown under the radar as far as crossplay goes. Like, I would love crossplay on NBA 2K because Hussein, you played some NBA
yeah.
2K on PC. back in the day, right?
Well,
And
when I the problem I find with the whole sports games and crossplay with that, especially like looking on PC, is like I remember like those games are so uniquely designed for controllers, like NHL, NBA, like FIFA, all those games. It's like if you try playing that game on a keyboard and mouse, it is the worst possible experience you will ever have in your life, in my opinion, anyways, right? So that's why it's like, I think they honestly don't even care to a certain extent because they're going to be like, who's the kind of guy who's going to build a $3,000 PC to have an Xbox Elite Series controller to just play a sports game, right? Like, I
mhm,
think that market is so diminished. Like, would I like to have the option? Sure. Like, I think it would be great because have I been still buying every 2K? Like, I have 21, I have 20 on my PC. I play I play the mode with my controller for maybe about a month or something, and then I get bored because honestly, the online lobbies kind of suck, right? Because I can't play with my friends, right?
yeah,
I'm playing with randoms, and that's part of the fun of those games, those sports games especially, is like the trash talking, right? And being able to be like, oh man, like I'm just so much better than you, right? And getting like all that out of your system. Whereas like I don't want to rage at some random kid online that I don't know, right? Like it's not as
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, and still buying them every year is kind of funny, right? Like I still buy NHL every year, and it's just like, what am I even buying this for anymore? Like,
yeah,
literally nothing's changed in NHL since like 2015. So yeah,
yeah.
definitely feel you on that.
I need to learn not to be suckered in by those.
I know. It'll never change though.
Yeah. So overall, do you guys think crossplay has done more harm than good to games as it currently stands, or do you think it's been more beneficial than not?
I personally think, and this is again coming from my perspective on the fact that I was able to play with my friends during the pandemic, I think
Hmm.
it's beneficial because I think it really brought together this whole like kind of global community of gaming, which we've never really had in the past before. You know, like before it's like if I had an Xbox 360, I remember like the huge title on that, I'd be playing like Team Fortress 2, right? And then I'd talk to my PlayStation buddies about it, and they'd be like, "What the hell is Team Fortress?" Right? Like they'd have
Yeah.
never have
Yeah.
heard about it. And then my PlayStation buddies, right? They'd be playing like, God, I don't even remember what exclusives did you guys have, like God of War and stuff like that, right? And
Yeah.
it's
Hmm.
like those are games that I would never get to experience, right? So there was always that whole like gaming was this singularly focused kind of type thing. And don't get me wrong, like every console always had like player two. I remember like even back in my Super Nintendo, right? I'd have buddies over and I'd be playing as Mario, he'd play as Luigi, right? And it'd be a good time. But that was the whole aspect is like if you wanted to game with someone, someone would have to be with you, right? There was never
Hmm.
this whole concept of being able to, hey man, you're on an Xbox, you're on a PlayStation, I'm on PC, it doesn't matter, right? We can still play together, we can play the exact same game and have a good time, right? Talk with each other. And it's like everything works so seamlessly, which is what's nice, right? Like all these games, they have their voice chats. Okay, wait, the voice chats aren't the best. Like, I still wish that you guys had Discord on consoles, but I don't think that's ever
Yeah.
Yeah,
happening.
that's kind of wild actually.
Yeah, like I think the voice chat situation's a whole thing in itself where like because I remember games last summer where we would be playing Warzone and we would just lose comms and we would be struggling like pinging
Yeah.
things trying to like get to go and like guys would be running the other direction, right?
Yeah.
But no,
Yet another
I
problem on the laundry list for Warzone.
Yeah. Or we'll be in the loading screen, just can't hear anything.
Yeah.
yeah. No, but I still think like that unique perspective that like because crossplay isn't going anywhere. It's never gonna go anywhere. It's here to stay. Obviously, like I think Brian was saying that earlier. Like
Yeah.
we're kind of stuck in this world where crossplay is gonna be there, and I think it does belong because it allows us to like it allows people who would have never played together to play with each other. You know, and it's like I know it brought us together. Like um like for
Yeah.
example, like us three, like okay, like me and Nick, obviously, like we've been best friends since junior high, right? Like I've known Nick for God, I don't even know how long. But me and Ryan, I'd say like how many interactions could you count on our hand that we've had prior to us gaming?
Oh, well, quite a few, cause like back through high school and such, and then like some in like university. But yeah, definitely fair. Not nearly the same level it is
Yeah,
now.
Mhm.
Like now I'd be like, you're the guy I'd call up and be like, let's go to happy hour together and stuff, right? Like let's go to the casino together. Like it's a completely different situation, and I think it's really nice in a sense, right? Where it's like I think it's the online community being able to make friends like that. Like I think it's a good thing. Obviously, there are like creeps and stuff online. Like if you're randomly meeting people online, I don't really recommend that. But I think
No.
like crossplay in a sense, like I think it's a good thing anyways. Overall for me, positive.
Okay.
Yeah, you summed that up really well. I totally like overall. I think I got to give it a positive. Like even though cheaters, competitive disadvantages for guys like us on PS5s and stuff, but overall you got to give it a positive. Just how it's changed gaming. It's brought people closer together. Like I remember early Fortnite, it was like wild that I'd be online with like different console people, like between PS4s and Xbox Ones, and then with PC people, um, and then early Warzone where like the pandemic sucked. There was nothing really to do for months, and being able to hop online with you guys and other guys that really like kind of broke up the monotony of working all day and stuff, right? So overall, you got to give it a positive. There's definitely some negatives that we've talked about, but yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I feel like I fall more somewhere in the middle. I mean, there are the positives as far as accessibility goes and bringing people together and introducing people who wouldn't
Yeah.
otherwise be gamers to the gaming community, like Hussein with Warzone. I feel like you wouldn't play very many first-person shooters if we weren't all playing it and didn't have the option to play together. But
Honestly, I will always regret starting to play Warzone because it made me spend $80 on Cold War, and that was the worst game ever. Just saying,
Oh God, yeah.
yeah,
had to throw
I'm
that
still regretting
topic
that
out
too.
there.
I forgot about that game already.
Yeah. But at the same time, I mean, there's been the whole mass exodus from Warzone in the last few months with like Twitch streamers and everything because of the cheating problem. And one of the things
Yeah.
growing up I always played console games for was, other than loving the feel of a controller, was just that it was kind of a safe haven from cheaters because you can't tamper with the OS without bricking your console. And so you've kind of got this community where you're playing on standardized hardware against people on the same hardware, and it's a level playing field. So the competitive part of me wants crossplay kind of to go away, or at least change how it functions, because I hate having inherent hardware disadvantages. And I get that's harder to overcome now with things like the Cronus on consoles. So it's kind of seeping into every gaming platform. But I feel like there are a lot of areas where crossplay could improve before I'll say that it's more beneficial than harmful. And so, kind of to go off of
Yeah.
that, I kind of want to ask you guys what you think could be done to improve crossplay, and what do you think the ideal setup for crossplay is? Like, what's the best way to have it function?
Yeah, so something what I wanted to say when you were talking earlier there was I think like ideally is there needs to be a way for you guys to say that hey, if you two are hopping on a game, that you guys should just be able to play with people who are only on PlayStation. Or even if it's like PlayStation and Xbox or PlayStation, Xbox, Switch, right? Like things that are only
Hmm.
going to be controller based. I mean, I know you can still plug in a keyboard and mouse on a PlayStation. I'm not sure how well that works. I haven't tested it out personally. But like even then it's still not going to be as good probably as like what I'd get on a PC obviously, right? Because it's not
Hmm.
built for that native input rendering, right? So I can't
Yeah.
imagine it would be the most amazing thing in the world. But yeah, but I think that for crossplay to evolve, especially to address all the concerns that's kind of been coming out of the gaming community, is it needs that kind of split, right? Like the that ability to be able to say that, hey, I want to hop on. I just want to play with console people tonight. I want to hop on. I just want to play with PC people tonight, right? And I think
Hmm.
like that, if a huge split like that were to happen, that would be solid for sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's basically like going back to what Fortnite had for, I guess it was the first couple years then, is it was the max. If you're on console with console people, the max you're playing is console. So it's
Hmm.
going back to that, which would be really important moving forward, which I don't think was a thing in Warzone at all. Because I remember we would Well, I guess we played a lot with Hussein, so I was always kind of under the impression that it was the same system. But I feel like as we went on, it was always you didn't really know, you never knew who you were playing because then it was based off of our win percent, like our wins, our KDs. So there was so many factors that led to us being in those higher tier lobbies that you weren't even getting rewarded for, right? So Nick and I had pretty good KDs in Warzone, but at least in Apex, we grind to diamond, and you have something to show for there, right? Like in Warzone, it was just we're playing all these good players, and there's just no reward for it. Like it was just in the background, right? So
Hmm.
I guess moving forward, it's kind of getting back to that. But as we switch games to Apex, I feel like that's already there, right? Because I know Nick, we've talked about how if you want to get to Apex Predator, then it's the top 750 from like right PC console, or is it each like
I think it's each
PS5 and
console, so I
Xbox?
think it's like PS5, PS4, Xbox,
Okay,
and
so
PC.
yeah, so I think overall there they do a good job of just like sorting it out, top 750 from each console or PC. So I don't know, like moving forward, what else can they do? Yeah, it's tough to say. I think more balancing if you really are at the top end of a game and you're playing against PC people, finding that balance between mouse and keyboard, and then for controller, the aim assist to really bring down that competitive advantage that I feel is there between each game. But that would be so hard to implement, right? Just because of how many different factors there are in each game, and I'm no like tech specialist or game developer, right? So I can't really help with that.
For me, I think there are two big problems. The first one for me is forced crossplay. I don't like games where the default is that crossplay is turned on. I remember the first time I booted up Modern Warfare and I stepped into a game, I was getting shredded by guys because I didn't realize it was crossplay at the time. And then I found out that I've got a guy on mouse and keyboard beaming me from across the map. And so it for me, to have that be the default isn't fun because a lot of people might not recognize that. And so if you switch it off, you're stuck with a smaller player pool and matchmaking takes forever. So I feel like it needs
Yeah.
to be done on an opt-in basis where by default you're playing with people on the same platform, and if you want to play with your friends on another platform, then you turn crossplay on and go into it. And then the other thing for me too is just ensuring that input is prioritized as far as matchmaking goes. I think so far Apex Legends does the best job of this, and it does the same job of also making crossplay relatively speaking, based on um, an opt-in basis. Like if you're playing
Yeah.
Apex on console with a controller, you're going to be put in lobbies with people who are on a console first, and then if you add a PC player, then you're in the PC lobbies. It's just like it's frustrating when, like you said, we're playing Warzone and we have decently high KDs, and then because of that, we get stuck with a lot more PC players. When I know for a fact, like there are tons of players who are also using controllers. I hate the excuse from developers, oh, well, we can't find a match for you because there aren't enough players playing on your console. Like, no, that's
Yeah.
not
No
true.
shot. And that was extra bad. Like on Warzone, it was like oh yeah, we can't. I remember there's a couple times we tried to go like no crossplay, right? And it would
Hmm.
just take us forever to find a game. And it's like
Yeah,
this is Call of Duty. It's literally it's come from consoles. There's no way there's not a ton of people playing and just trying to play that way, right?
yeah. Well, and the big one that really annoys me is Fortnite because I play a lot of that with my girlfriend, and we always run into PC players. So, generally, we're pretty good at the game. We'll get to the last five or so teams, but then everyone is building like three or four walls at once and walking through them at the same time because their edit speed is so fast. And
Oh
there's
yeah.
just no way to compete with that because once you get to the higher end of the skill-based matchmaking and that, you're stuck playing with PC players, and because it's forced crossplay, you can't opt out of that. So you're really kind of forced away from the game. And with Warzone, with the crossplay being such a huge part of the game, that's kind of forced me away from that too because of all the problems that crossplay brings into the fold.
Yeah, and then going back to just give me a rank. Like we played
Yeah.
that game so long. we had like 1.5, 1.6 KDs, which I know like streamers and stuff, they're a lot higher, but like for the average guy that we're working 8 hours a day, like it's pretty good, right? Like, so give me something. That actually annoyed me so much about that game was just how much time we put in, and I literally not a badge or anything to show for it. Just
No.
like, yeah,
Yeah.
that was tough.
Yeah. So I want to ask you guys, as crossplay systems stand in games right now, what game do you think does it the best so far?
I would say as of right now, probably Fortnite, just because of how long they've been doing it for. I think that's like because it is the long I well, it's probably not the longest game. I'm sure I'm not correct in saying that, but like I think that it's the most like popular kind of global title when you think about crossplay, and I think that it probably does it the best just in the way like how their anti cheats like it's actually like enabled in their system and everything like that too. So I would say, and then like even Fortnite, like if you hop off, I don't know, do you guys have the option to turn that off, crossplay off in Fortnite?
No, not unless
Okay,
you're playing
so
solos.
yeah, because like I don't think I've ever waited less than like 30 seconds for a lobby in Fortnite.
Well,
Like
yeah,
it's always
maybe
very
now,
like
right?
quick.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, whereas like I don't know, like even other games, right? Like Apex, Warzone, like you're still waiting a bit of time, right? Like trying to find a match and everything like that. So I'd say like optimization wise, I feel like Fortnite's the best, but like I mean you have to look at the conglomerate that like what Epic Games has become because of that game, right? And it's like the amount of money that they like pour into that, right? So yeah.
No, I totally agree. You got to give it to Fortnite just being the pioneer. I remember like 2017 when that game came out. It was really like it wasn't the first battle royale, but it was the battle royale for a long time there. They made so much money. They did such a good job, and then just finding a way to enable crossplay. And like I know I was kind of well, everyone is annoyed when you come up against these PC guys that are editing at the speed of light, and I'm just like I can't even handle what you're doing right now. But overall they did a good job of just implementing it, being the first big battle royale game, and it was so fun for so long. Yeah, them for sure.
For me, I have to go with Apex just because it's got the, relatively speaking, input based matchmaking as far as crossplay goes, and so being able to opt out of playing with PC players if you're just playing with a friend on console, I think for me has been a huge selling point of Apex, and it's what has allowed me to stay in the game and play it for as long as I have. I feel like Warzone, the thing that definitely drove me away was having to play with PC players if I wanted to get in a match decently quick. And again, with Fortnite, I've started playing that a lot less because I'm playing with more and more PC players. And as much as they did pioneer crossplay in battle royales, it's also really frustrating that it's being forced on people. And so I would love to see a system where you can opt out. I don't know why they made that change, but I think that was a really, really bad move on their part.
I bet you it's just because of the player base, Nick, don't you think? Like the game was so popular 2017 through 20, I don't know, 19. Like there's no way that they can keep all these servers, all these games running without like getting people playing together. I think it's just reached that point in its life cycle that where it doesn't have the player base anymore. But I could also be completely wrong, and maybe Twitch viewership is still huge, but I just
Yeah.
don't see it anymore.
Well, one of the things I've seen people say on Reddit about Fortnite is that Epic kind of has this tendency to pander to PC audience because they've got such a huge PC community, and so I think they
Hmm.
retain more PC players by having console players in the same lobby because there's going to be that advantage, and so it makes it more fun for them. So from a business standpoint, if you're able to retain those players longer, I think that for them is motive enough to keep the game as it is.
Yeah, very fair.
So the next thing I sort of want to go into then, and this kind of builds off of crossplay, is skill-based matchmaking and what you guys think of that in games. Because we've been playing a lot of Warzone and a lot of Apex in the last year and a bit because of the pandemic, and so skill-based matchmaking is kind of an unfortunate reality that we've run into. So I want to get your guys' thoughts on it.
Well, I mean, I'll give my thought on the unique perspective that I'm way worse than you guys at gaming. So I think skill based matchmaking is obviously a heaven sent in at least that I get to somehow compete with people that are in the same like kind of skill range that I'm in, right? Because like when you take a guy like me who's never played COD in his life and you stick me in a lobby with a bunch of guys who've been playing COD for like 50 years, like I'm screwed. Like there's no way that I'm even going to be like I will even get a kill off, right? So I personally like I enjoy skill based matchmaking. I mean, it's kind of hard when I play with you guys because we end up going in higher tier lobbies anyways. But I still think like I think it's a nice feature in a sense as when it's working correctly. Because I know sometimes how skill based matchmaking will work is they'll be like, oh, you guys play this game a lot, so you guys must be good, and then you guys are automatically sent into the higher tier lobbies, and I don't necessarily agree with that.
Yeah, that's one of the things Fortnite does with their matchmaking. It's like a hybrid of skill based and how frequently you play. So like if I take a 3 week break from Fortnite, I can go back and win a couple games, and then all of a sudden I'm vaulted back into higher skill lobbies, and it kind of becomes a pain in the ass. So I can see what you're saying. Like if it's based on how frequently you play and a high skill player hasn't played for a while, they might get thrown into your lobbies and all of a sudden you have no chance.
Yeah. And so that's why I'm like, I don't know. I still think it's better to have it than to not have it, if that makes any sense.
Hmm.
Because at the end of the day, guys that really like just start playing out, they really shouldn't be put in lobbies with us. Because it's like, it's just completely unfair to them, right? And it's like, it's going to turn off a lot of potential like new players to the game, right? And especially now, I feel like gaming is getting kind of to this point where it's like a lot of younger people are starting to come in and play, right? Like, I don't think like I don't know. I guess we were gaming when we were like 12 and 13, but like, I don't know. I feel like now there's definitely a lot more younger people gaming than there was before. And maybe it's because of the popularity of it on TikTok, on Twitch, and all that kind of stuff, right? Like, those are predominantly dominated, I would say, by younger audiences, right?
Hmm.
So you have a lot of younger people like playing games like that. And it's like, honestly, like, I would hate to think that some guy gets in a lobby with me, I kill him 50 times, and then he never plays a game again, right? Like I would hate for that to happen to someone. And like he's 13 years old, he never wants to game again, right? Like that's terrible. Like I think gaming is like a thing that really like brings people together. And I would really want like so I would hope that they have something like in place for people who are really like starting out, right?
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, no, that's fair. For me, so I got a couple points. Like you can go back to when we were younger. So like when we were younger, like Call of Duty, just playing pubs and stuff. Like there was zero skill-based matchmaking. So I guess like what game am I really thinking? I'm thinking of Modern Warfare 2, Black
Hmm.
Ops 1, that
Yeah.
that time frame. Like where I really like that was junior high for us, and yeah, so that's when I really started liking COD, liking trying to be good at it. But I think like today, like when you have skill-based matchmaking, like it's good for people starting out, like Hussein said and stuff, but there's also not that reality that like if you want to be good at this, like you have to push through, you have to play the best people. Like that's how we started, right? It was like you got shit on when you started playing, and
That's true.
you've either found a way or you stopped. Like it's like kind of like I think that's good for if you actually want to take it, like be competitive with it, be serious with it. What like, and that's just how it went for us, right? So
Hmm.
there's definitely that piece of it. I see what you mean about like yeah, having 13-year-olds start out playing against like lower tier people, but yeah, there should also be that challenge that like the game presents you. And then the other point is just like if you're gonna put skill-based matchmaking in it, like I've said already earlier, it's just like is give me the rank, and that's where I really want to just commend Apex Legends and how good of a job they do with their rank system. Like it's so good. You have KP, you have RP, like kill points. You can have six in a game. It values teamwork. Assists mean the same as kills, and then you have a rank at the end of the day. Like Nick and I, we grinded to get to diamond because it was kind of cool. Like it had been years since we've had like a good rank system in the primary game that we're playing,
Hmm.
where you actually care to show that you've made it to diamond. So yeah, that was my other point. Is just like how much I like the way Apex's their rank system works, and it's definitely the best I've seen in I don't know forever. I think.
Yeah, for me, skill-based matchmaking is kind of a double-edged sword because you look at it one way. On paper, it sounds like a great idea because it's logistically speaking fair. You've got newer players with lower KDs matched up against each other, and the better players are matched up against each other. It's like professional sports. You're not going to see some high school amateur team playing against the LA Lakers. That doesn't happen. The best players are in the best league. They're playing against each other. So until LeBron goes and assembles his super team, it's generally speaking fair. But um, in reality, I think one of the difficulties is that as you get better at these games, you start to feel like you're being punished for being good. So rather than having a random matchmaking system where any given game it's possible that you could just absolutely dominate, you know that as you get better at the game, the chances of you having fun are starting to go downhill. And that's my big frustration with skill-based matchmaking. I do
Hmm.
love that Apex has that ranked system. It gives you the option to opt into something that is skill based, although they also still have the skill based matchmaking in pubs. And so that part kind of annoys me is I think if you have a ranked system in a game, you don't need to have skill based matchmaking at the same time. Although I do understand the rationale for it, and one thing I really love about Respawn and about Apex Legends is just how transparent they are about everything. And one of the things they came out and said with skill-based matchmaking was the rationale behind it is that it it increases player retention for new players. And so, yeah, they have a financial motive because it's a free to play game, so they want players in the game as long as possible to increase the chance that they're going to spend money on the game and keep it viable for them. And so it's nice that Respawn has said, yeah, we want to keep players in this game by allowing newer players to feel like they have a chance to win, and so they're going to have more fun with the game. And I think like the way they started out was that um, I think up until like rank 25, you're against newer players and bot lobbies, and then you're kind of thrown to the wolves. But there is that element still of skill-based matchmaking. Like I know Ryan, the last few games we've played, we've seen a lot more Preds than we did before we started playing ranked. So
Oh yeah, it depends. It just totally depends on the day in that game when you're just trying to jump on pubs. Like one day we actually won like six in a row, right? Which is
yeah,
insane. And you're like what are these lobbies? And then a day later we're just getting attacked by apex predator trails diving into the caustic plant with us, and it's just like it's not gonna happen. So yeah,
yeah,
you really never know.
yeah. But yeah, that's kind of where I stand on skill-based matchmaking. Is like I would prefer that there be a ranked mode where you can opt into skill-based because people who want to test their skill and want to prove that they're the best are going to gravitate towards a ranked mode. People who want to just jump in and have fun, I think it should really just be random. And so I would love to see games like Warzone implement a ranked system so that there is that choice. I think I would play a lot more Warzone still if they had the option.
And
Like a
I
rank
think they
like
were
ranked,
trying to
right?
do,
Yeah.
yeah, they were trying to do something like it, like when they were bringing over Black Ops. I just don't think they ended up doing it, right? Like,
No,
because I
they
kept on
they
seeing.
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, 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 you go.
Yeah, they ended up having like I know we didn't play Cold War a lot, but they did end up implementing a rank system, but it was based off of like I didn't play it, but it was based off of like a certain amount of placement matches, and then you're in like I think it was a series of tiers, like there was like four tiers, and then it was really hard to even progress from there. So they didn't like they have a rank system, but
Yeah. No,
there's
because I
there's
remember
no
that they,
incentive to grind. Sorry.
yeah, no, because I remember that they put that in there. And then I thought that they were gonna like bring that into Warzone, and then it just I think like whenever like because Warzone got taken over from Activision or what even happened with
To
Warzone? It went
Raven,
to like
right?
Raven, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Raven
Raven.
Software, because I think
And
Infinity Ward is working on Modern Warfare 2 right now. So as soon as Black
yeah,
Ops came out, they had to shift control over.
yeah. So I think when that whole control shift happened, like obviously the early implementation of Black Ops into Warzone was better than I think anyone could have ever imagined
I thought it was
because like
really
I just
smooth
thought
at
it was gonna
first.
be because I personally thought like this was going to be hot garbage, right?
Hmm.
So like it was definitely better than I think anyone could ever imagine, and then it declined a lot.
It
Like
went
as
downhill
the
real fast.
Yeah, and I'm not quite sure what happened with that, like whose fault that was, who's to blame for all of that. But I think that's part of the reason why like a lot of features that we were supposed to get from Black Ops never actually ended up like transferring over, like the ranked mode and all that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, like initially they did a great like when have we ever seen a game like start with a certain set of guns for Modern Warfare and then implement so smoothly the Black Ops guns into the game? Um, sure, there was like the DMR era, there was different eras of meta that were like out of control, but like
Mhm.
overall it started off and it was super fun. You had like so many guns to pick from, and then yeah, like totally, it just went downhill so fast, and like I guess them switching over to Raven Software, the cheaters were absolutely out of control because that's where I remember we kind of tailed off playing. But yeah, there's
Yeah.
just so many factors there with that game, and really all could have been avoided with just a good anti-cheat. But who
Yeah.
knows?
Well, it's like even looking at Apex, if they added like, because they added like close to like 20 guns. Like imagine adding 20 guns into Apex like randomly. Like that in
No,
itself
no.
would be hard to do. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I don't think there's any realistic way to balance that when you have that much of a
Yeah.
shift in the gunplay all at once.
Yeah, and we got to give them their props for that. They did a pretty damn good job of implementing it all.
All right, well, I think that's going to do it for us today. So I want to give a big thank you to Hussein and Ryan for joining me here on episode 3 of the L2Games Podcast. And thank you to everyone who tuned in and watched this episode. We'll have another one coming at you soon, and we'll catch you in the next one. See you guys later.